It's time for you to journey with me into the dark abyss that is ayahuasca. Ayahuasca is a plant medicine which enables you to face your inner darkness, to see who you truly are, and to purge what no longer serves you. This past January, I went to the Sacred Valley in Peru and I sat 2 nights with ayahuasca. So on the first part of the episode, I sit down with my husband who did the ceremony with me, and we talk about what it even is, why we wanted to do it, and what we were hoping to gain from the experience. And then on the second half, I share my 2 nights in ceremony. Night 1 was about the lessons of intense suffering and ancestral healing. And night 2 was about the terror and bliss that comes with true surrender. I also share my integration, which is so important to any plant medicine or spiritual journey. How are you going to take these lessons with you into the real world to help your life change for the best? As always, I am so excited to share this episode with you. It changed my life for the better. And be sure to tune into next week's episode where I interview my husband, Mana, about his experience and integration, which has been entirely different from my own. Time for you to kick back, relax, and enjoy the show. You are listening to the School of Whispers podcast. I'm your host, Stephanie, and this is my space to get real, open, and weird about my life experiences as a psychic, medium, energy healer, and student of Chinese medicine. On the show, I'll be sharing my healing journey and the concepts I've learned along the way, and I'll be having guests on talking about the same sort of thing. I am so happy you're here, and I hope this show leaves you feeling inspired and empowered to learn how to listen to the whispers of your own body and spirit. Let's get into the show. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the podcast. This is your host, as usual, Stephanie. And on the show, I have my husband, Mana.
Hey, it feels a little weird to say this, but thank you for having me.
You're absolutely welcome.
Good to be here.
So we are sitting in our loft sort of studio apartment in the heart of Cusco, Peru. We just got here today and we're making a boil up essentially. Which a boil up in New Zealand is. Actually, you go ahead and tell them what that is.
Yeah. In New Zealand, the boil up is an absolutely classic dish, and particularly with Maori people, but a lot of people use it. It is what it sounds like. You take a bunch of vegetables like cabbage, potatoes, meat. They like to use pork bones, chicken, whatever. Throw it in the pot, boil it up. Honestly, don't even always put seasonings in there. Just a bit of salt and pepper, and let it boil. They'll reheat it for days and everything, and yeah, it's fun.
But so ours is dieta friendly. We went to the market. We've got a bunch of purple corn, regular corn, all the different types of. We got like 3 different types of potatoes in there.
Yeah.
But I mean, this isn't what the podcast is about. But I'm mentioning it because you might hear the bubbling in the background. We are here in Cusco because we are doing ayahuasca on Monday. We're doing 2 ceremonies, and these are our first 2 ceremonies, and we really want to use this as a time to kind of reflect on our journey up to this point, talk about why we want to do it, and I guess maybe we should talk about a little bit what ayahuasca is in case anyone's curious. I guess I'll just jump in really quick and just explain what ayahuasca is. It's a plant medicine. It is a plant mixed with a vine, and honestly, I can't tell you how many times I've researched the chemistry of it, but it's blanking on me right now. But essentially, it inhibits the reuptake of DMT in your body so that your body is flooded with this DMT. And you do this sitting with shamans, you meet with psychiatrists before, doctors before, and not every retreat does this, but our specific one. etnicas does. And it's a very strong hallucinogenic, and it's very strong purging medicine. So it's all about purging either physically or energetically, and looking at your psychology. The plant has this adaptogenic intelligence to show you where in your life you have shortcomings, unresolved trauma, and magic. I'm hoping, and you work through it together.
Yeah, yeah. And a little more detail on that. I forget what DMT actually stands for, but it's like the dream.
Dimethyltryptamine.
Oh, there you go. Okay, so one of us knows. It's got it's the dream drug. So if your body emits it, right word. When you sleep, when you die, your body is flooded with it.
When you're born.
When you're born, your body is flooded with it.
When you give birth.
When you give birth.
When you orgasm.
There you go.
And also, I've heard that the uterus emits DMT on the first day of our cycle. Oh. So yeah, that's really interesting too.
It is. And in the ceremony, it's a deeply spiritual ceremony. It's not like this isn't the kind of thing. Although some people do this, but it isn't supposed to be the kind of thing, and it won't be the way that we do it. Where you're like sitting around with a bunch of friends going, I want to get kind of fucked up and just try something and go on a trip. This is about going on a journey, and one of the reasons that I want to do it, and I'm sure we'll go into that more soon, is from what I've heard, the research that I've done, it sounds a little counterintuitive and paradoxical, but apparently when you're in the depths of this, you feel more sober than you've ever felt. It's almost like people say that when they come out of it, like this isn't sobriety. It's like when you're on this, you have never felt more clear, never felt more in control, never felt more in tune and knowledgeable about what you need. You can't lie to yourself anymore. So a lot of the things that we lie to ourselves about, like if we're a common example is like drinking or eating too much, how we start to justify it to ourselves when truly we know, like, yeah, we've eaten enough, or yeah, we've drunken enough, or yeah, we probably shouldn't have that extra drink, whatever. But we justify it. Apparently on the ayahuasca and after it, for a lot of people, you just can't do that anymore. It's significantly more difficult to go through those motions of lying to yourself, building up that story of why that thing is okay, why you can do that. And it's just like, why would I do that? Why would I want to hurt myself some more and poison myself? And for me, that's a part of it. I want to develop a higher level of control over the vices that I have, I suppose.
And I like that you say you feel more sober than ever, especially after, because a lot of us, and I know that is it? I think it's in a shamanistic tradition, the one that. Don Pedro.
Yeah. Well, sure. No, not Shipibo. That's what we're doing.
Yeah, we're going to be doing it with the Shipibo butchers. But anyways, I know that the great dream, is something that we all walk our lives in, and it's kind of just an illusion that we are not in control. We are not connected. I think that's the most important thing.
Toltec.
Toltec. Yes.
Is the people from Mexico.
And this dream is essentially the human mind has an addiction to suffering, and the way that it keeps in its addiction to suffering is through stories. So we tell ourselves stories. So you notice that Mana, he mentioned food and drinking, because that's been his journey, and for me it's a lot in my relationships, a lot in feeling responsible for those around me because of this fear that I will die alone. I think I've mentioned this in podcasts before. I like to fearscape. I like to kind of follow the fear, follow my behavior that's destructive, and then I follow the fear from there. And then it's always just, this overriding fear of dying alone. And logically, I get it. Emotionally and behaviorally, I'm still trying to not act from that place, and that's definitely part of the reason why I want to do ayahuasca, so that I can let go of the story, free my mind from my own suffering, and wake up from the dream of my life, so that I can see my reality for what it is and be able to expand beyond the limits that I've placed upon myself.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I think a lot of people would benefit in that way as well, because I know that everyone has stories that they tell themselves, and narratives that they live by. A lot of people um, still think that they're victims in a number of ways. Some people are, of course, but a lot of us aren't. A lot of us just kind of living that narrative, and I think that's something that I've mostly weeded out. And often when I feel that way, I can kind of remind myself that no, actually, I'm in control. But then there's a lot of things, a lot of my vices that I don't feel entirely in control of, and yeah, that's the story that I'm trying to end, and get under wraps, and even with that, like, and you've seen me like this many times. When I feel vulnerable and afraid or something, I want to eat or I want to drink. Still, I'm better with it now. I had a pretty stressful job for most of the year. It was eating me up a bit.
But yeah, I think it brought you to that logical place of seeing yourself and knowing.
Yeah. Well, now I've said to you, Steph, and even my mum as well, that I'm glad that I had this year of that job, because it was fucking stressful.
Which you're no longer in.
Which I'm no longer in. I moved on to a job that I'm much happier in, for sure. But I did start to, like, I definitely was drinking and eating a lot more. Drinking for the sake of trying to, like, numb at the end of the day or the week. I wasn't getting, like, messed up and going out and doing anything crazy. But it was just an unhealthy way to cope with the stress. It was just like, okay, I had a rough fucking week. I don't want to think about it. I don't want to deal with it. I'm just going to drink so I can't remember it. And it's not like I'd get blackout drunk or anything.
No.
But then, like, I'd do that the weekend through. And then come Monday, I feel like I have to...
intention behind it.
Exactly. I don't... Yeah.
If there's anything I've really learned from my guides this year, when it comes to using substances, using them for the sake of numbing, with the intention of numbing, is more harmful than anything.
Very destructive. Yeah. Because if you think about it this way, like, you've got an underlying issue, you try, instead of trying to cope with it, you use a substance that is harmful. It breaks you down. Like, it literally, I can feel my strength break down after a couple of days of drinking. Like my character, my conviction, I come out of it feeling weaker, but I've still got that problem. It hasn't gone away, and I feel less equipped to deal with it, and now I have to face it. And it's Monday, and I can't just hide away from it. I have to face it now, feeling weaker, with less conviction.
Less self-compassion.
Less self-compassion, loathing myself a little bit, because if I drink too much, I lose all inhibitions, and then I'm like, oh, fuck, I'm just going to eat. It's the weekend, and I'll just have, like, a bunch of dessert, whatever. And then I do silly things like fast the whole day and work out twice to try and, like, make up for it.
And then there's no more mama left.
And then I'm just like a shell of a person, and it's a funky little fucking cycle that I'm trying to get in control of. And I'm much more in control of it than I was months ago, but I want it to be easier. I don't want it to be such a conscious thing that I'm having to do all the time. Like, okay, Mana, you've had a bad week, sit with it, and then still having that internal battle as much as I do. Like, I want it to just be, I want it to be easier. Yeah. Just want life to be easier.
I would like to take this way back into the beginning of...
I was going to check on our dinner.
Yeah. So I want to take this way back to the beginning of how ayahuasca came into my realm, my field, and how Mana came to join me in it. Because at first it was something that I was actually planning on doing alone. So back in January, I had over the holidays... I had some issues with my dad, and in January I had confronted him, and I felt freaked out. And so I remember, like, going outside, running around, and not feeling any better. So I came back inside and started doing breath work. And then all of a sudden, I'm alone in my bedroom doing breath work. And then all of a sudden, I'm hit with this memory of my childhood that's always been in the back of my head. And then all of a sudden, I kind of am shown the bigger picture. And You good?
Yeah.
Okay.
Spilling water everywhere.
Okay. And so I'm shown the bigger picture, and then I realized that this memory had more to it than I had thought, and it was not okay. And I'm just going to leave it at that because it's deeply personal. But it really, really messed me up. And um, it brought me into a dark place, and I didn't say anything to even Mana for a couple of days. I remember like I was just starting the job that week. It felt like too much. And then um, eventually I did tell Mana, and eventually, life goes on. And I was listening to a podcast, I believe, and they mentioned ayahuasca. And then I hear that my friend Bonnie, shout out to Bonnie, you are the bomb because you've been such a guide in all of this. But then my friend Bonnie tells me, oh yeah, she's doing ayahuasca at the end of the month in January. And all of a sudden I have a bee in my bonnet to do the ayahuasca and to heal myself and do all the things and get past all this trauma. And so I am like trying to manifest this in meditation. I'm doing all the research and all listening to hours and hours and hours of this podcast. And I have to say the year 2021 was a year of like ayahuasca addiction. Like it's all
Obsession.
it's all I wanted. If you have met me in 2021, you've probably heard me talk about it. Anyways. And so I had signed up. I went as far as signing up for 2 places, and one of them, my friend Bonnie said, absolutely not. It didn't seem right. And then the other one, I found out on my own that it was not the right thing. And all the other places where I wanted to go, I signed up for getting, sweepstakes or getting free whatever scholarships, but nothing worked out. And I could tell that Mana, every time I talked about it, had this. He put the face on. It's like his face kind of, all the animation in his face kind of pulls back to the back of his body, and his eyes get a little bit worried, and his mouth gets into that little tiny straight line, and he kind of just looks at me. And I knew while I was watching him that he was not okay with this. And while on the outside, I was thinking, well, I don't give a fuck. I'm going to do what I want. On the inside, I knew deep in my heart that I would not be doing this if I didn't have his blessing. And not because Mana controls me, but we're partners in life. And there's no way I would ever want anything to come between us. Mm-hmm. So, and then around this time, other things are happening. I'm starting to have very vivid deep messages from spirit, from guides, from dead loved ones, mine and those of others. And I am giving people that, for lack of a better word, psychic readings and medium readings, and I'm astral traveling. And
yeah, you really just lumped everything on me at once, whether I liked it or not.
It wasn't at once. It was a couple of weeks of just throwing it in, adding the fruit to the vegetables to the pot to boil.
You throw something, I still wouldn't have adjusted to that. That'd be another thing.
And when I had met Mana, he was what's that word?
For context, it's probably the same here, but in New Zealand, all public schools do religious education. It's pretty much Bible in schools. That's what we call it. Like, we learn about the Bible and stuff. And I was a kid that at 6 years old, after sitting through a couple of classes, told my parents, I am not listening to these ridiculous stories. Write me a note so I don't have to do it anymore. And they wrote me a note, and I never went again, and just went to the library every week and read books. And
eventually you became atheist. And then when we met, I love religion. I'm not a religious person. I grew up Catholic. I respect religion. I'm deeply spiritual. Obviously, School of Whispers is just all about that. That's kind of been the missing piece of my puzzle. But for Mana, it's been a different journey. And all this crazy shit I was talking about really triggered you. Yeah. And so it kind of caused a rift between us. And eventually, I remember one night, I kind of sat you down and I was like, Mana, this thing, I do want to say really quick, I find it very interesting that when I was shown the trauma after my breath work, the kind of the vivid picture of the trauma, all of a sudden these psychic gifts start rushing in. So in a lot of ways, I'm so grateful. I'm so grateful that my body waited. It was like I was a sickly, I honestly believe that my body held this sickness for years. And then I I'm on the cusp of healing. I feel safer than I've ever felt in my life living with Mana in our apartment, our first apartment, first time living together alone in a city.
Second apartment, but that's another story for another time.
Yeah, that's another fucking mold. Anyways, and my body decided when I was safe, when I was healing, it was time. And then came in when you're ready, when it's time, it's time. But anyways, moving forward, I sit Mana down and I said, this isn't going to be the thing that drives us apart. It's going to be our inability to communicate about this that will. And we talked and talked and talked. And then I was crying. And then Mana was crying a lot. And I remember I was like closing my eyes, trying to tune in with Mana's guides. And they said to me, whoa, back off. And I was like, but I'm just trying to. No, they told me, no, back off. Mana needs space from you, and we do not want you like this. You do not have permission.
I imagine them looking like heavily tattooed ancient Maori warriors with
yes.
taiaha and patu, like these Maori weapons that they used back in the day, poking their tongues out, doing pukana and stuff.
Oh, they weren't doing.
Go away. Doing haka.
Yeah, basically they were doing that. And I don't think we really ever resolved anything. I think we just kind of went on a walk.
Yeah, I truly felt broken, like wires were misfiring in my head. I didn't even know how to speak properly or what to say. It was, I felt, up until that point, I felt incredibly resistant. And for want of a better term, I just wanted everything to be normal in our lives. Like,
normal is boring.
Normal is boring. Fuck normal.
But I don't know if it was before this had happened or after this had happened, but something kind of wild to me happened where I'm cleaning our shower and there's all these chemicals and I'm getting dizzy and lightheaded. So I go and I open our balcony door, which I keep open all the time. And I go and I open our balcony door. And I go outside and I close my eyes and I take a deep breath. And during this time, I am just begging the universe, my guides, Gaia, anyone, please help us out. Help Mina and Mana out. Help him come to a place where he can understand me and, kind of just heal this break between us. And while I'm doing that, I hear a big crash inside. And I really, looking back, I really think this was a huge symbol of like the universe saying like, this is what's to come. So I hear a huge crash inside of our apartment. I go inside and there's a bird. There's a swallowtail flying around. So I close the door and I'm like, Mana, there's a bird. And eventually I catch the bird and I release it. And I'm thinking like, I don't want any more birds coming in. So I'm closing the door every time I do this. I come back inside to take a shower. And then I hear another crash. And there was another exactly identical bird in our apartment. It felt like a Matrix moment. And so I couldn't catch it. It was way too high up. So eventually Mana came in and he caught the bird and he released it. And I'm sitting here with this. I'm looking up swallowtails and they're birds that represent family and relationships and love. And I just thought, I saved a bird. Mana saved a bird. This is a sign. Something's happening. It's going to be okay. And so we had that conversation. Mana broke down, or broke through, rather. And then the next morning, things were, normalish. And then I remember, I had a friend over, maybe it was Sasha, and you came over to me. It was like early afternoon. You said, Steph, I'm not afraid anymore. I said, oh, good. Oh, because you'd also told me, I don't want you doing ayahuasca because I'm afraid of...
Yeah. I was scared of what it would do.
Yeah, how much further apart we would go.
Yeah, that too.
But then you said, Steph, I'm not afraid anymore. and I want to do ayahuasca with you, and let's go to Peru. And I said, Peru, that feels good. Let's do it. And then you said, great, because I found this place at Nikas, and like everything from
it's
there.
affordable. It's everything we need. It's perfect. It's respectful to the tradition. I think I went to the gym that morning and went for a massive run. That's when I do my like. We say that in the relationship. I'm like the
Washing machine.
The washing machine. That like whenever I have stuff that I need to work through, I don't really talk about it much. I just need to go run, sit on the bike, work out, whatever, and just churn it around in my head like a washing machine.
Mine has a cancer.
It's very frustrating for Steph.
Because I talk about everything.
Because she knows that there's something going on, but I'm like, no.
Yeah. Anyways, so this is where we're at. I've had a really interesting year, really connecting with the spirit of ayahuasca many times in meditation. A huge calling from the time that we signed up last summer was for me to quit smoking weed, which was a journey for me. It was very difficult, and I really didn't feel any strong resolve until one day I was in meditation, and I felt this energy of this old woman coming to me and basically saying, bitch, I'm trying to heal you, and you keep on getting high before you sleep. And now that Mana's mentioned the DMT, how it's the dream, what'd you call it? The dream hormone? The dream drug? The dream drug. I realized that ayahuasca is an entity. Ayahuasca has its own powerful energy to it, and a lot of people call her grandmother. And when I went to my friend Bonnie and I said, hey, like, this happened, she said, oh yeah, ayahuasca and marijuana do not mix well. And so I'm saying this to you because the moment that you find interest in ayahuasca, the moment you start making moves towards her, that's when the journey begins. And all the trauma that I wanted to heal immediately through ayahuasca, this year, I have resolved on my own. I've resolved through therapy, through EMDR, through meditation, through sitting with my guides, through journeying with shamanic drums, through Qigong energy healing, through shamanic energy healing, you name it. And I think it's because I meant to, I know there's more healing to do, but I'm meant to see something. How's it taste?
Yeah, good.
Okay. I meant to see something more or something. I don't know. I feel this deep dedication to this ceremony that's to come. And Mana, do you have anything that you want to add, put into?
Yeah.
I know I've kind of hijacked this, but...
Yeah, I was thinking that. Why'd you even bring me in there? You just talk all the time.
Because you're cute.
So I don't think we mentioned at the start of the set, like, yeah, we're doing ayahuasca. We're sitting with ayahuasca on Monday, which is 2 days from now. And this is going to be a continual podcast. So we're going to pick this up in a couple of minutes, probably. I don't know. We'll be there. You'll be hearing from us there, maybe after our first sitting or the day of. I'm not sure yet.
Or honestly, maybe there's no promises because I have no clue.
Yeah, exactly. The day there leading up to it, we might have some downtime. We want to record something if we feel like it. But the key thing is during those couple of days is listening to ourselves. So either way, it'll be during that time or when we're back in Cusco, because I'm so excited about this. We got a couple of days in Cusco after.
Tell them where we're going.
Ayahuasca. Yeah. So we're going to a place called Etnicas, and it's I think an hour and a half, 2 hours out of Cusco, up in I forget the name of the exact region, but it's up in the mountains in the Sacred Valley. We're doing it with the Shipibo people, who are kind of the
the
oldest, most authentic.
Well, I mean, I don't want to say that, but
that kind of demeans
the oldest lineage.
Yeah.
It's very specific, and so it's all in the dark. They sing Icaros, which are these songs, these ancient traditional songs of the people. We'll have no idea what they're saying. Hopefully, maybe there's a translator. But it's a very specific traditional lineage, and There's a dieta that we're having to follow. No salt, or low salt, no sugar, no anything that's going to induce serotonin in the body, like caffeine, sugar, chocolate, alcohol is a big no-no.
You hijacked me again.
I know.
What are you doing? Come on. So, yeah. So 2 days up at Nika's in the Sacred Valley. It looks incredibly beautiful. Very, very isolated, right up in the mountains. Nothing around us but rolling hills and mountains. When we're there, we do meditation. They feed us, I'm assuming will be delicious. Very simple though, but delicious meals. Vegetarian and vegan. We do service up there. So I think we either go to like a shelter for animals or an orphanage. It's one of the two.
Or planting trees.
We do some service there on one of the days. We're there for 2 nights in total, 2 ceremonies. And yeah, like Steph said, the shamans will be in there. It'll be in the dark. They take smaller amounts of ayahuasca as well, so they can be in the journey with us. And from what I've heard, they are incredible. They just know exactly what you need at the time. They'll sing in your face, but not in a way that it's not in your face. In that way, it's like comforting. It's guiding you, literally guiding you. So I have, going into this, I do feel somewhat, there's feelings of nervousness.
I feel the gravity.
Yeah, the gravity, definitely. But I just surrender. There's things that I hope for, but I have no expectations. I just expect that I'll probably be spewing up a lot at least and going on a wild, wild journey into myself and into my soul and my inner being, which I'm really excited for, truly. So it's nervousness, accepting the gravity of it, and a whole lot of surrender.
Accepting the purge.
Yep. Just accepting that there's a whole lot of good and bad to come, but I also deeply believe that you cannot appreciate the light without the dark. So, yeah, it's all one and the same.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah, so This is us signing out on our I'm one of my clients, she said to me, the next time I see you, you will be ayahuasca'd. So the next time we speak to you, we will be
ayahuasca'd.
Thanks for listening, and we'll be in touch soon. Well, it's been nearly 6 months since I've recorded the first part of this episode. Safe to say, I've been ayahuasca'd. I originally had recorded about the experience, but in hindsight, one, I, with my ayahuasca brain, didn't turn on my microphone, so the quality was shit. And two, I realized that, while, tripping out and seeing the fabric of consciousness is super fascinating. Really, the big thing about this is the aftermath. What happens after one does ayahuasca? So I'm going to get into telling you about night 1, night 2, and then talk about my integration. To paint you a quick word picture on where I did it, I went to a place called Etnicas, which was just outside of Peru in the Sacred Valley. And so it's this retreat center that is surrounded by these ancient mountains, which they call the Apus, which is just referring to them as the mountain gods. And it really does feel like you are being watched over by these imposing beings. And my sister-in-law, who's from New Zealand, she was telling me, she was listening to one of my podcasts, she said that with my accent, when I say bean, it sounds like beans, like the food to her. So now I can't say beans without thinking of beans. All right, well, anyways, so we're in this gorgeous retreat site, and where we do the actual ceremony is it's sort of like a circular hut with a thatched roof and a beautiful skylight overhead, and it's called the Maloka. So that's typically when you go to an ayahuasca retreat, you're going to be doing ceremony in the Maloka. And I think I mentioned this before, but we met with doctors and the psychologist before. And really, wow, since in hindsight, I really don't think I ever want to do ayahuasca with anywhere other than somewhere that has doctors and psychologists. Personally, I was actually, second night was pretty cruisy, but watching others kind of lose their shit, it really helped my peace of mind knowing that they were taken care of. There was somebody there just in case shit hit the fan. So if you're someone like me who cares a lot about others, I recommend you make sure there's a doctor and a psychologist around so that you can just let go and chill. So it's nighttime when we did the ceremony, right before we did a yoga class, and this guy came in who really did this beautiful preparation of sort of how to process emotions verbally through the body. So a lot of like loud sighs and big hums, and in hindsight I'm so glad he did this because it really helped me when I was in ceremony feeling a lot coming up. It helped me kind of process those emotions and energies just by the physical manifestation of sound. But anyway, so there's 10 of us in the retreat, and it was all of our first time. And it's so funny because we were all so excited. Oh, I mean, to be real with you, ayahuasca is not, I think I mentioned this part one, but it's not a party drug. It's not something you do because you want to feel groovy and have a good time. It's hard work. It's fucking terrifying to have your brain and your experience of what your day-to-day consciousness be completely rewired. It's very confronting. So in hindsight, all of us being so excited for it, after night one we were just like, holy shit, we had no idea what we were in for. So night one anyways, let me reel myself in here. So we had to my pleasant surprise, two female shamans. We had one who was sort of a specialist in ceremonies for Pachamama. And who is Pachamama? Pachamama is the earth, the physical earth, as well as the realm that earth provides, that holds us. It's just this capital M, mother energy. And if you really tune into this sort of energy, you'll find it's just like this never ending bubbling spring of love and comfort and adoration. And so this woman, she specialized in that. And then our other shaman, she was the ayahuasquera. So she was the one who really was specialized in preparing and serving ayahuasca. So that was Maestra Diana, and she was they both were absolute badasses, but I actually had the pleasure of sitting right next to her, Diana. So we kind of all sat around this circular dome room in the Maloka, and I decided, because I'm somebody that kind of picks up on energies very easily, I wanted to be on the outskirts. So on one side I had Mana. Next to me on the other side I had our ayahuasquera. And so they bring us our serving. It's a little shot glass of this thick, sticky juice that, gotta be honest with you, I kind of liked it. It kind of tastes like prune juice. It reminded me of these health shots that my mom, if anyone had their mom in the pyramid scheme Arbonne, my mom would give me these little juice shots. Kind of tasted like that for me. And so we're all sitting in silence. They're burning Palo Santo. We're all setting our intention. And almost within 10, 15 minutes, people are already starting to purge. I'm already starting to hear people start to moan, pant, little noises of emotion, and a lot of puking. And for some reason, I just didn't feel anything. And Mana as well. He wasn't feeling anything either. So maybe about an hour into it, somebody finally asked if I was feeling something, and I wasn't. And for that hour, I was really struggling. My biggest fear was that I would come to this retreat center and I wouldn't. Because some people, I mean, ayahuasca gives you what you need. If what you need is to experience nothing and to be within that void and to surrender to it, then that's what you're going to get. And I was just so afraid of that, of not, I guess, seeing. And so with that hour of struggle, I just started just repeating to myself, I surrender to not knowing what's going to happen next. I surrender, I surrender, I surrender. And yeah, finally someone came over. Hey, you feeling anything? No. Do you want more? Yes. And so as I was waiting for them to bring me more, they also brought me a mapacho cigarette. So mapacho's just pure tobacco. It's not a cigarette with all the icky extra stuff in it, just pure tobacco, and it's used in ceremony. And it's kind of it's for some reason it just works very well with the energy that is ayahuasca, and it sort of enhances it. So I start puffing on some mapacho, I drink another cup, and then things start coming in, and I see these kind of like these double helixes, and they're just flowing in front of me. And then the more I watch them, the more it's starting to develop extra details to it. So I'm seeing leaves and trees and animals, particularly a wolverine, which later I looked up what the wolverine represents, and it represents having courage in the face of intense struggle. And wow, that really, really describes what I needed for this night. So I'm seeing, and then what's happening is they're starting to pulse and become really thick vegetation and a really intensely detailed animal face, and then it'll pull back, and then the leaves turn into, oh, hello, little bird. Sorry, a bird just kind of flew on the table with me. And so the plants would turn into dead, ashen plants, and then you'd see the animal go from fur to muscle to blood to bone to ash, pulsing in and out. And when I met with the psychologist and kind of explained a bit of my goal, well, for the first night, I really just wanted to heal stuck energy due to trauma that was in my lowest chakra centers. And she told me, this is your connection with your ancestors. What she recommended, she said, I highly recommend that you don't, I know a lot of people ask questions, but maybe you don't ask any questions. You just allow the healing to take place. But me being me, when I start seeing those helixes, I feel this presence start to settle in. And it actually felt very familiar. I don't know if in part one I talked about how I felt this presence come into me before going to do ayahuasca, this older woman kind of telling me to stop smoking weed. It felt like that presence, but just way more palpable, like a person entered the room. And so me being me, I'm asking questions. Something that I've really long time struggled with is picking my skin. It's just a nervous, anxious, and anxiety-induced habit, and it's anxiety-inducing. And I find it so ironic that I'm a healer. I heal with and I feel with my hands, and yet my hands, I struggle to control them harming my own body. Since I was in kindergarten, this has been a thing. And so I asked the question, ayahuasca, can you help me with my hands? And I hear, no. You're not asking the questions. I am. And it kind of puts me in my place. And then ayahuasca, who's just like, for me, it felt like, well, night one, it felt like this more older, wiser sort of teacher, a stern teacher. For others, she kind of felt like the sexy aunt who just awakened their kundalini energy, which is just like the energy that runs along your spine and kind of really manifests in your hips and your lowest chakra. And actually something that we all in the group, we kind of, a few of us felt was like we were gyrating our hips a lot. It was really awakening that sort of energy within us. And then night 2, ayahuasca definitely had more of a maiden energy. Kind of felt like she was on my level. She was a sister. But I think we could all, anyone who's done ayahuasca can all agree that it's really got this feminine quality to it. And so ayahuasca goes, yeah, so earlier you were, chanting and, talking all about surrender to not knowing what's happening next. But how do you actually do that? You don't. Stephanie, you are so focused on being the good daughter, the good student, the good this, the good that. You don't leave any space to surrender, do you? All you care about is getting the grade, getting the gold star. Huh. And I'm listening, feeling all of this, laying there and thinking, well, shit, you're not wrong, but could you be a little nicer? And from that point, I'm starting to see... I'm starting to get really sleepy, and I'm also starting to see sort of disturbing images of death, dying animals, dying people, which, gotta be honest with you, I've seen this all before, whether it's doing readings for others or if I'm going on my own little shamanic journey listening to shamanic drums on Spotify. This is just a thing that happens to me. So I'm watching this going, cool, this is fascinating, wow. And then the energy that is ayahuasca goes, okay, I see. Well, if you're not going to react to what you see, you're going to react to what you feel. And by this point, I'm like in a dream state. I'm not totally asleep, not totally awake. But then I am just bolted awake by feeling such intense coldness through my whole being, feeling like I will never ever be warm again. And I'm covered with layers of blankets and I'm just shivering and shaking, and then all of a sudden I'm back asleep, and then I wake up, and then I am so hot, I am so sweaty that I'm having to take off all the covers. I'm kind of lifting my shirt up a little bit and just covered in sweat. And then I'm back asleep. And then I wake up, and it's funny because a lot of us woke up at this point. Somebody in the group had gone up to go to the bathroom, and right when she got to her bed, it was like, well, the way later she described it, she said, I just wanted to go back from the bathroom to my bed so bad that when I saw my bed, I felt like on the outside I was leaping to bed, but I wonder if it was just my soul leaping out of my body to get to bed. Long story short, she just like at the foot of her bed collapsed on the floor, and everyone that was helping us in the ceremony, 'cause there was a lot of helpers, just swarmed over to help her up and get her back into bed. So I'm watching this thinking, holy fuck, this is chaotic. And everyone's throwing up, and some people are moaning and crying, and I feel fear course through my body. And I hear ayahuasca saying, yes, let it come up. And so now I am no longer asleep. I am feeling emotional fear. I'm feeling physical pain. Like, I thought at one point, this is what dying from sickness must feel like. Just chills, fever, body aches, really awful feeling. And in hindsight, I've lived a lot of my life feeling and believing that I am so much sicker than I am, that I'm so much more of a sickly, weak person than what I truly am. And so in a way, I feel, in hindsight, looking back, I think it was ayahuasca kind of showing me, no, this is what it really can be like to be sick. This is what, being so sick to the point of near death actually is, Steph. Look at the life you have. You got it good. And so I am just breathing through it. Really, that's the only thing that's helping me. Just taking deep, measured breaths in and out through my mouth, like and I didn't think anyone could hear me, but later people were telling me your hearing becomes so acute in ayahuasca when you do ayahuasca. So other people were telling me it was so nice to hear your voice. It was very grounding, or my breathing. And I was like, really? Because I was losing my shit. I'm glad it came off as peaceful. And I remember sitting there thinking, I am a warrior. I am a warrior. I am a fucking warrior. And then ayahuasca comes in and goes, yeah, you're a warrior, Steph. Well, why don't you go use the bathroom? And then I immediately went back to remembering that girl falling. And I was like, never mind. I'm not a warrior. I can't do this. Holy shit, this is terrible. And just kind of going between those two back and forth of I'm weak, I can't do this, to I am here. I can do this. I chose this. And actually, right when, I don't even know where time was at this point, but by the point where I was like, I can't hold it anymore, I have to use the bathroom. That was the moment when the fever broke and the pains, the body aches started to subside. And I threw up once. It felt like somebody was reaching their hand down my esophagus into my gullet, down to the very depths of my spine, into really my pubic area, the root chakra that I was saying, that is our connection to the ancestors. Felt like someone was grabbing something that was stuck down there, like a little spiky ball. And as they pulled it up, felt like it was just like ripping through my body. And then as the hand came out, I threw up. And the two shaman, they came around and just sprinkled beautiful smelling like agua de Florida, which is like flower water, and just shaking herbs over my head, which felt so nice. And so after everything kind of hit its peak of shit, I'm laying there starting to feel lighter, and I'm realizing, oh my God, a lot of it is, I think this is over. And I could see my family members surrounding me. My abuela, I was so anxious about my mom because I hadn't spoken to her the day that I was doing the ayahuasca, and my abuela was right at the edge of my bed, and she was like, Stephanie, you do not worry about your mom. That is my job. I will go and let her know that you're okay. You, and my abuela's since passed, or she passed when I was like 2 years old. And I could see my cousins, my sisters, and they were all just had their hands on me saying, thank you. And it was at that moment when I remembered the very beginning of my trip, seeing those DNA strands, that I realized I did it. I healed for us. I don't know exactly what, but I stopped some sort of pattern that was running in our DNA by choosing to do this ceremony. And I also remember thinking, oh, that was awful. Does all suffering, though, have a purpose like mine did? And ayahuasca answers no. No, not all suffering has a purpose. It only has a purpose if you choose for it to have a purpose. And then later on, as I was laying in bed reflecting on that, I saw the equation: suffering plus perspective equals purpose. So we drank medicine around like maybe 8 o'clock that night, and I was in bed around 1:30, and around 2:30 I finally fell asleep. Then at 5:30 I'm wide awake, and I'm thinking, no, I have 3 more hours till breakfast, go back to sleep stuff, because we had volunteering to do that next day and another ceremony, and we fast after breakfast. So I was like, there's no way you can survive this day. But the moment I close my eyes, I feel that presence step in again, that grandmother stern bitch saying, no, Steph, I need you to be sleep deprived. If you try to sleep today, I will wake you up. And truly, anytime I tried to close my eyes and kind of doze off, she stepped right in once again and said, "Nuh-uh, wake up, wake up." And in hindsight, I think I needed to be sleep deprived because night 2 was the true surrender. And I needed to have my ego, exhausted enough so that I wouldn't battle it out, so that I would surrender sooner. Fast forwarding through the day, I felt lighter and healthier than, honestly, I think in my whole life. And I still feel a sense of this vitality, maybe not as much as I did right after the medicine, especially considering we were in such high altitude, which poor Mana was really struggling through it. And it just didn't affect me after the ayahuasca. I remember walking through the property because you have to go down all these steps and past a little waterfall and to get all the way to the food area and back up the stairs to get back up to and everyone's panting. And I'm just like skipping along, feeling so good. And fast forwarding through the day, when it comes time for a ceremony again, I am really fucking scared. And I'm just reminding myself, if I'm going to suffer again, then I choose to have purpose within this suffering. And also, if this second night was going to bring any sort of the vitality that had been feeling that day, then I was down to suffer another night so that I could feel this good. Truly, it's like I felt like years since I was such a sick kid growing up, or at least that's what my memory brings in. And I don't think I've felt this healthy since I was a fucking toddler, I guess. So I'm laying down on my mat and night 2 begins. And I'm just repeating to myself, fear is soil for courage. Have courage, Steph. And so we are passed around our little shot glasses of ayahuasca. And I noticed that I'm given less than I was given the first night. And my ego was like, good. This is all we're going to have. But this higher part of me, this fearless part of me, was like, no, I know this isn't going to be enough. And so I asked for more. I drink the medicine and I go to lay down. Oh, and something to mention, something that was just so cool was the Icaros, the song of the shaman. So, and it truly is different for everyone else. So in the very beginning, Maestra Diana, the ayahuasquera, sings her Icaros, and you just feel it filling up the entire room, and she's using her whole body in it. And how they described it is ayahuasca is the snake, the Icaros is the snake charm. So it makes it awaken within your body. And she sits in front of each and every one of our mats to sing her song. The first night when she was singing the song, I wasn't feeling anything yet, so I didn't really get to feel the pure power of it. But night 2, almost immediately, I'm feeling as if you've ever done psychedelics like acid or mushrooms before, there's this, or even if you've done edibles, there's this moment where you're starting to feel that shift in your body and your consciousness. And you're like, oh yeah, here we go. Okay, things are starting to kick in. Let's go. And I was starting to feel that, but it was like I was going up a roller coaster that the drop was going off a cliff into the abyss. So I'm like, I don't like this ride. I'm really feeling the intensity of this climb, and part of me is all for it, and another part of me is like, I felt so good today. I have such a beautiful life. I got everything I needed from ayahuasca. I do not need to be doing this, and it's too late. Fuck. And so when that part happens, whatever substance that you're putting in your body, there's that moment where you have to decide, is this going to be a bad trip or is this going to be a good trip? And fact of the matter is you chose to put that substance into your body So you may as well decide to roll with it, to surrender control, to surrender what you think this is supposed to be like, and just allow what comes in to come in. And so I'm hearing this high pitched vibrational frequency just completely fill the room around me. And then I kind of feel it sort of infiltrate my body and my energy field. And I'm starting to feel myself sort of start to vibrate along with this frequency. And I'm hearing ayahuasca come in again, but she's less of this stern grandmother. As I mentioned, she's more of like a girl like me, a friend, someone I could trust and who could get on my level. And I hear her say, "Give in, my love. Do not be afraid." And as I'm just continuing to go back and forth on this feeling of hearing little whispers saying, "This is your birthright. This is your birthright. You should be doing this. Let's go. Let's go." And then also hearing my voice say, "Get away from me. I don't know who you are. Leave me alone." And I had to just surrender that part of me. And I remember hearing a voice say, "This is your ego suffering. Let it happen. Just let the suffering happen so that it can run out and then you can let go." And all of a sudden, Maestra Diana, she's right in front of me and she's singing her Icaros. And when that happened, the roller coaster climb was over and it was time for me to fucking blast off into the abyss. So her voice started guiding these pulsing images in front of me that started off as colorful vibrations and then that were kind of pulsing like a heart. And then they started to take this different quality, this different rhythm, and which again, my body was like aligning. It was like these tiny, like little microscopic trembles that were happening externally, but also internally. And all of a sudden I'm starting to see these colors and vibrations turn into actual forms. First it started with seeing these little creatures in my peripheral vision that kind of, if you've ever seen the Studio Ghibli movie Princess Mononoke, it's so good. But there's these little white like they're the forest spirits, and these little white guys that shake their little heads, and that's basically what I saw, and with these large gaping eyes. And they're sitting first on nothing, and then the more I watch, and my eyes, like, it's like eyes open, eyes closed, I'm seeing what I'm seeing. It doesn't matter seeing actual three-dimensional objects in front of me. But it's all of a sudden I realize what they're sitting on is like these strings of fabric. And this fabric starts filling up with these symbols of ancient civilizations and then faces that are not human, that are entirely interdimensional, aliens. And again, my ego resists and is like, "Get the fuck away from me. I can't believe there's actual aliens in front of my very eyes. I can't believe I thought that this would be cool. Go away." And you let go. You listen to that side of you. You breathe a little. You feel that terror. And then you let go. And you muster up some courage. And I heard these voices start to say to me, "You have never truly released control of your human before. You've never left, at least in this lifetime, you haven't left this body. And that's exactly what we want you to do. We want you to surrender your body and come with us." And again, push and pull. And I remember thinking, when is this going to be over? And then a voice told me, "You'll soon look back and wish it'll never end." And then I'm starting to hear like these like sounds in my ears, and I'm starting to kind of like writhe around like a snake, and I hear myself sighing. And that was really the moment where it started to manifest in my body, and I was like, "Oh my God, there's no hiding this. Let's just do it. Let's go." That was the moment where everything became, there's really no words. There's this meme where it's like a children's drawing of like a very crude drawing, and then a next one is like this beautifully illustrated world, and it's like the world is what your trip on ayahuasca or whatever plant medicine you do, that's what it actually was. And then the stick figure crude drawing is when you try to explain it into words. So I'm actually not going to spend too much time talking about that, but it was just mind-blowingly beautiful. And it helped me realize that, I mean, it doesn't sound like I'm sober here, but it was like I was seeing the reality in front of me for what it truly was for the first time. And it's a mixture of exhilaration and a little bit of terror of kind of thinking like, oh my God, will I ever return? Do I want to return? I don't think I do. I think I want to stay like this. It's just this pure consciousness. If I could sum up night 1, it was the pain of death. And night 2 was the absolute bliss of death. And so I'm hearing other people have their experience in the room, and there's moans, there's vomits like the night before, but then we get a little sprinkling of extra chaos. Peter, if you're listening, love you, buddy. But my buddy Peter was having an absolute exorcism, just roaring like a demon and and like puking and just working on some deep, dark shit. And I'm, again, in this state of bliss. And then when my ego, the one who was battling, didn't want this to happen, when my ego does come in, she's more of just kind of like somebody who's in the back seat who's observing and saying like, what the fuck is happening? And what the answer was, and it's funny because night 1 and the beginning of night 2, it felt like there was this voice outside of me that was answering, but now it felt like it was my own voice answering me. I became that consciousness. And it was saying, we are healing you. This is all, everyone here, this is your birthright. This darkness, this light, all of it is what you were born for. And then they're also sprinkling like, yeah, and by the way, you're going to be sick once, but it'll be glorious. They just repeated that a lot. You will purge. This will be glorious. This is your birthright. And I remember also thinking like, this is a fucking exorcism. This is wild. I thought I knew what entities and darkness was. No, this is the real deal. And actually with that realization, I did feel a little bit of fear and kind of felt like I needed a little break. So I asked somebody to help me leave the room. And I went to right side of the Maloka. There was this indoor hallway where we got the bathrooms on one side, the doctor's office on the other side, and there's couches in the middle. So somebody helped me get into those little couches so that I could just kind of focus a bit. And one thing they said, which I love, which I say to my clients now, if we're in a meditation session or golden needle trance state, which don't have the time to explain that to you now, but one day I will, and it's going to blow your mind. But when we are in that state, the most important thing is to focus, is to concentrate. That's what they said. They kept on saying, concentrate, Stephanie, concentrate, do the work. And I'd be like, okay, I am here. And I remember hearing these words say to me, you are a prophet. You will lead as you've led before. You are a prophet. And I was wondering what that meant, because after night 1, anytime I asked a question night 1, they were like, sit down, little girl, you're not asking questions. I am. So night 2, I'm reluctant. So I'm like, all right, wondering what that means. Not going to really ask you what that means. And then I just immediately hear the answer. This means you're meant to listen. Don't ask any questions, just surrender and listen. And I remember seeing this past life, which since then I've actually have seen more and more, it's starting to come in more, of being some sort of prophet in a desert community. Ancient times, I guess. I mean, I just remember it being really brutal. And even saying this out loud to you guys, like what they said to me, I got a little bit of mixture of like kind of imposter syndrome and reluctance, because it was a really, like, in that life, I left to be in the desert to sort of commune with other beings in different dimensions and to hear what they had to teach my people. And then I would return, and then I would relay the messages and then people would start to go out into the desert with me, which was not a good idea. And which I remember thinking, like, I don't want people coming with me, and then watching them all die and of thirst, starvation, exhaustion, other people in the desert killing them. And I would say, leave, don't come with me. And they would come regardless. And something that's really interesting is, since then, I've met a girl at my school. As I was doing a healing on her, I was like, I saw that life. I saw her in it, and I saw her dying. And I just kind of said, like, I think we've known each other for a while. And she's a really, really interesting, I'll have her on the show one day, spiritual person. And she was like, I knew it. When I met you, I had that feeling as well. But anyways, so I am in the hallway. I do have my one purge. It was so easy. Some would say glorious. And I remember after puking, just sinking back into the couch. And then my head starts shaking like those little white aliens that I had seen. And I remember thinking, like, what is going on? What is this? And they were like, this is you transmuting energy. This is how you heal others. Something that I do is I heal with my hands. I pull energy out. And in the beginning, when I was doing it, I would get so sick. And these little white beings taught me how to transmute energy. And then I'm going to fast forward a little bit, because I could just keep going on and on and on and on and on and on and on about this. But I really want to get into the portion where Peter really starts to enter the equation, because I learned something really valuable about myself. So I'm chilling on the couch, hearing everyone suffering on the other side of the doors. I'm just feeling real good. At one point, I was telepathically reading the psychologist's mind when she came to check in on me. I just started, before she could even say things, I was answering all her questions that she was thinking. And I hear the roaring, and I'm like, what? The roaring? It's right next to me? I thought I left this. And then I realized that Peter had gone to the bathrooms to continue his purge. And so I'm like 10 feet away from the bathrooms listening to him. But this time I am not afraid. I am really inspired by him. And so I call out to him, because he's starting to pant, and he's whispering and panting to the demons, and I'm yelling out, own your breath, because that was something I really learned the first night, was to own my breath. And then you could hear him, like, he knew what to do. He started owning his breath. And then I'm just like whispering to him, like, we love you. Like, witnessing you is just, like, what a warrior you are. You're a fucking warrior. And he finishes up, and he's being walked back into the Maloka, and I, from the couch, say, like, good work, Peter. And he looks at me like a little bit as if somebody called out slut from across the room, but it was a ghost calling out slut. So it was a little bit of like disturbance, and like he saw a ghost. And later I was like, Peter, what was that all about? And he goes, I didn't know that you were there. I didn't know that that was an actual human talking to me. And then once he enters back into the room and I had that experience with him, I'm really craving the return back into the Maloka with everybody else. And somebody helps me in, and she reminds me, of course, to focus and to always return to love. She could tell I was a little bit nervous, but it was great advice. And so I'm on the bed, and something that I'm realizing is those little shakes are happening, and I'm also hearing little sounds come out of me, like little bird twitters and little hums and things, and just as they were when I was on the couch. But then, because I'm in the room, I'm noticing that they coincide within a minute of somebody starting to purge. Like a little sound would come out, 30 to 60 seconds later, you hear somebody purge in some sort of way, whether it's tears or crying or whatever it may be. And after a while, I'm like, fucking A, am I helping people here? Are my little sounds, am I like assisting right now? And it reminded me that I actually have had a past life as a man who was a shaman. So I really think that was him coming through and sort of facilitating, because the next day when we were kind of all sharing our experience, Maestra Diana was like, you helped me out. She's like, it felt like I had a little shaman in the room with me. So yeah, my body was, and I really didn't have a lot of control over what was coming out of me, but there was just some sort of deep innate knowing that of how to assist. And with that came this realization that I experienced. You can put it to really anything in life. And that is watching somebody in their darkness. It doesn't have to be scary. It doesn't have to be something you want to turn away from and hide and run and hide from. In fact, that darkness is a moment for their true power and their true light to come shining through. And I witnessed this with everyone in the room, realizing, oh my God. And as cheesy as it sounds, we truly are warriors for light. We chose to take this medicine, or we chose to suffer in whatever way that we chose to in life, so that we could overcome it and return to love and help the world return to love. And I'm looking at everyone who's sober in the room, who's here to help us, and the ayahuasquera and the shaman, and I'm realizing, oh my God, they're doing this to help us return to love. Like they're not really, they're not sleeping. They're not really getting that much out of this, except for getting to witness us in this battle, this dance with the darkness, so that we can emerge from this ceremony and help the world become a more beautiful, loving place. And being able to really feel, you can hear it, but feeling it is just another thing. And that was really something that helped with my integration, was anytime when something was hard or overwhelming or disturbing in my life after this, was just this remembering of that feeling of witnessing this dance with darkness, and remembering how fucking beautiful and powerful we are as children of light. Oh, wow. Getting super squishy, hippy dippy on you guys. I know. But that's really what I'm here for. I'm here to witness, and I will return to do ayahuasca, but also to return to be in ceremony and to witness others, to help others experience their own darkness in this way. And I'm so excited for it. So last two things that I'm going to touch on that happened in this ceremony. The first, well, in ceremony one, actually, so I'm a twin. I have a twin sister, Gabby, and she and I, growing up, have had a really hard relationship, and we're great now. If anything, better than ever, honestly, because of the ceremony. And I'll get into that. But when we were teenagers, we both really struggled with boundaries with each other. And she had told me around the age of 15, she began telling me that she didn't want to live anymore, that she wanted to die, and that she didn't believe she would live very long. And it just shattered my heart into pieces. And it was cool because in the ayahuasca ceremonies, some something, and I don't remember if it's night 1 or 2, but something they showed me was me being born. Like, I was watching myself being born in the room, and they probably took me away at some point when Gabby, because she was born 3 minutes after me. But in this vision, I was watching her being born, and I, as baby Steph, was looking at baby Gabby thinking, that's my baby. That's my baby sister, and she's precious. Oh my God. And if you listen to my past life regression episode, you'll understand a little bit more about the mechanics of our relationship. But hearing that my sister didn't want to live it was so hard. And so I started to withhold love, because the thought of loving her as much as I did and then losing her, it felt like way too much. And something that the beings of the entities of ayahuasca showed me was that I was withholding love, and that's a bullshit way to live. It creates pathology. It keeps you from living and loving fully. And we only get one lifetime in this body with these specific personalities and people. So I know that death and grief and losing and loss the pain is unimaginable. However, you should never, ever withhold love out of fear. It's not good for anything within this matrix as Pachamama. But, and in 2019, she and I went through a particularly really difficult struggle. And it had manifested in intense hip pain. And my professor, who's become my mentor in a lot of this healing work, he had let me know that I had a dark energetic blockage that we could call a dark entity in my hip that wasn't mine. It was my sister's. And ayahuasca showed me night 2. She was like, yeah, so you know that entity thing? It's a thing. It's true. Here's what's going on is you are afraid that your sister will experience life fully and then not want to live anymore. And so you have taken a little piece of her soul, in attempts to shield her. But doing that has taken a piece of her soul, and you're holding on to something that is not yours. Do you want to let her go? And with this realization, I'm thinking, oh my God, you can have the best intentions in the world and still be doing black magic. Actually, that was a hindsight revelation. But yeah, you can have the best intentions in the world, but if you are attached to this suffering of another being that is not you, that is a form of dark magic. That is stealing a piece of their soul. And so I'm thinking this, I'm like, well, if she experiences life fully, this is a good thing. I should do this, right? And of course, sassy bitch that ayahuasca didn't answer me. And so I'm like, yeah, okay. I release, I let go. And just like that, hip pain is gone. And months, actually in February, so this was the end of January where I did this, and in February I went home to visit, and I saw Gabby, and she looked different. Being around her felt different. We weren't very touchy after all those hard times in our teenagehood, and like I just wanted to sit next to her. Like during dinner, we just wanted to be next to each other, and like we were hugging each other, and I was just like, Gabby, you're so different. And she goes, and not knowing anything, I think if she listens to this podcast, this is her first time hearing the whole story. So, and then she said, it's funny. It feels like a piece of me returned in January. And I was like, could you repeat that? Holy fuck. So very, very cool. Very beautiful synchronicity there. And then the last thing. So at the very end of the night, I'm feeling fresh, feeling all that good stuff. And I'm like, all right, I know I'm not allowed to ask questions, but can I ask for a gift? And I hear, yeah, sure. What do you want? And I said, okay, well, I want to see things. Like I want to see, like spiritual energy and all that good stuff. They were like, well, hold on. Be very specific, because this was a lot for you, and experiencing more sober, we don't want you to lose your mind. And I was like, that's a good point. Okay. So I asked specifically to see people's auras and to see the way that people hold energetic blockages or light within their body. And guys, it fucking worked. I can turn it on and off just like a light switch, just like she showed me in ceremony. And since then, I might sound a crazy person, but if you don't, if you're thinking that I'm a crazy person from this statement, then you know, listen to more of my podcasts. But I'm watching like seeing my clients, seeing their energetic fields. When I'm watching my professor do removals on people, I'm seeing the quality of their, oh my God, there's a crow right across from me just staring at me. Hey, buddy. I love crows. Okay. Reel it in stuff. So I am watching people's auras completely change as they heal. Something that is fascinating is when somebody is crying, I'm watching gross, icky looking energy being pushed out of their aura. And I knew, you know, you hear that crying is healing, but I really I get to experience this on a full-on energetic level. If I'm in school and in clinic and somebody walks in and you could just, you know, if have empathic qualities to you and you're so noticing like, oh, that person's got some heavy shit on them. Well, I'm actually seeing like their aura, and then within their aura is a dark little orb with its own icky looking aura, and right in front of her shoulder. So I'm like, do you get shoulder pain? She goes, yeah, all the time. And it just all aligns. It's so fucking awesome, and sometimes I still can't believe that this is the life I chose. and I love it. So something that's really interesting that happened right after leaving Peru. So I got home on like a Saturday, and then on Monday I found out that at the time I was working at a med spa, which was just kind of like a steady pay by the hour sort of gig where they got my clients, they brought them to me, I stretched them, blah blah blah. Well, I lost that job. I got laid off, and it's because because of this whole experience, I was able to see that and be like, oh, I see. Okay. So I did all this healing. I learned how to heal others. And then now universe is like, alrighty, reins are off. Time to go develop School of Whispers. And so that's where I am. I mean, because that happened, I'm able to develop this podcast. And because there's a lot of healing that I went through with my throat, which there's just so much that went on. I can't share it all, but it's enabled me to start this podcast. For about 6 months, I was toying, or more than 6 months, but for a while I was recording things and playing with how to publish and learning it, but I didn't have the courage to do it until after this ceremony, after all of the release that I experienced. And in terms of integration, obviously you can hear that I've had a lot of epiphanies in hindsight. And as I'm sharing this is part of my integration, really sharing openly. And it's different for everyone, but for me, being able to share openly about this experience and all the other wild experiences that I have in this world of interdimensional life and travel. It's being able to share it out to other humans has been so valuable to my integration. Having my friends and family accept me, having this podcast and sharing, receiving feedback of love and acceptance. And I mean, yeah, I don't need it. I don't need external love and acceptance from others to know who I am and to accept who I am. But shit, it doesn't hurt. It does not hurt. And I know we're not meant to do this alone. So having all of you here supporting me really means the world to me. And yeah, I am just enamored with my darkness, the darkness of others. And I'm so excited to see where this path brings me, because I know that part of who I am is meant to be some sort of tool in enabling others to experience and release in the way that I witnessed and experienced myself. At this point, I feel like I'm just rambling, so I'm going to cut it here. Next week, I'll be... Obviously, I could not share this experience with Mana here because this is all about my own. But next week, I'll be interviewing Mana so that he can share his whole journey and integration, because it's entirely different from my own. And with all of this, with plant medicine, it's all going to be your experience. You are not going to see, feel, and hear exactly what I did. It's going to be your own. But I do hope that I inspired you to dig a little bit more into plant medicine or sacred ancient traditions and darkness and shadow work, because that's really where the light comes in. That's where the magic happens, guys. All right. Thank you so much for listening. If you want to work with me, head over to the show notes, actually. You'll find my website, schoolofwhispers.com, and you'll find my social media. And I will be feeling your energy next week.